Most people think that when God brings their soulmate into their life, it will feel like lightning from the sky, instant recognition, a dramatic sign, something unmistakable. But the truth is, God works far more subtly, and often you won't even realize what's happening until much later. What looks like an ordinary meeting may actually be the divine moment that changes your entire future. God doesn't just throw people into your life at random. Every relationship that shapes you, especially the one meant to last a lifetime, is carefully orchestrated. The surprising part is that his introductions rarely look like what we imagine. Instead of a movie-style love story, they unfold quietly, woven into the fabric of your everyday experiences. It might begin with a friendship, a shared purpose, or even a season of challenge that forces you both to grow before you recognize what he's been building all along. And that's the beauty of it. When God is the author, the story is never rushed and it's never shallow. It carries depth, peace, and a sense of purpose that human effort alone cannot manufacture. So if you've been wondering when or how you'll meet the one God has set apart for you, it may already be happening right under your nose without you even realizing it. When God introduces you to the person meant to walk alongside you, he doesn't usually do it in the way human beings expect. We often imagine a grand moment, a spark of instant attraction, a cinematic revelation that says, this is the one. But that's not typically how the divine operates. God is not in the business of indulging shallow preferences. He's in the business of aligning purposes. And when it comes to something as important as a lifelong partner, his concern is not whether you feel butterflies on day one, but whether your callings complement each other in the years to come. Think about it. Preferences shift. The traits you value at 20 may be utterly different from the ones you treasure at 40. What seems charming in one stage of life can become destructive in another. If God gave you someone based on a fleeting desire, he would be giving you instability, not love. Instead, he introduces people in the spaces where your purpose is being lived out. You may meet them while serving others, pursuing a career that reflects your gifts, or engaging in a passion that matters deeply to your soul. And in those environments, something remarkable happens. You're not trying to impress. You're not presenting an edited version of yourself. You're simply doing what you were designed to do. That is where true recognition often begins. It's striking how often people look back on their stories and realize that what I thought was coincidence is actually alignment. They were in the right place, doing the right thing at the right time, and someone else, someone who would later become indispensable, was there too. Psychologically, this makes sense. You cannot recognize someone who is truly meant for you until you are walking in a path that is authentic to who you are. If you're living out of step with your purpose, you'll attract people who are equally misaligned. But when you're rooted in the pursuit of something meaningful, the kind of person who intersects with your journey is far more likely to share that depth. There's also something profoundly humbling about this process. Because if you pay attention, you'll see that God is reminding you of a simple but essential truth. Love is not primarily about desire. It's about responsibility. To meet a soulmate in the field of your calling is to meet someone who understands that your life is about more than personal gratification. It's about contribution, sacrifice, and growth. And that sets the foundation for a bond that can weather suffering, because it's built on shared meaning not temporary pleasure. Now, this doesn't mean there won't be attraction or that romance is irrelevant. Far from it. But it means that attraction without shared purpose is fragile, while attraction coupled with a God-given alignment of mission is nearly unbreakable. Imagine the difference between standing on sand versus standing on rock. One shifts beneath your feet at the slightest pressure, the other holds firm when storms come. Purpose is the rock. Without it, relationships collapse. With it, they endure. And this is exactly why many people don't realize they've already met their soulmate. Because at first glance, the connection doesn't scream romance. It may look like a coworker, a friend, a ministry partner, someone you cross paths with while pursuing what matters most. It's only with time, with reflection, that the deeper significance becomes visible. God orchestrates these introductions in such a way that you can't mistake them for chance once you finally see them for what they are. So the question isn't merely, when will God introduce me to my soulmate? The deeper question is, am I walking in my purpose so I can recognize them when He does? Because if you're wandering without clarity, you might miss the divine intersection that's already happening. The closing thought here is simple but sobering. God doesn't bring you someone to complete you. He brings you someone to join you. And the moment you stop chasing superficial preferences and start walking with discipline in your calling, you create the environment where His introduction can finally occur. Don't wait for fireworks. Walk in your purpose and trust that God will place the right person on that path. That's how you'll know. It won't be preference. It will be alignment. One of the most overlooked ways God introduces you to your soulmate is through the quiet consistency of character. Not the fleeting excitement of chemistry, but the endurance of integrity. And that's difficult for many of us to accept because we've been trained by culture to believe love is about emotional intensity, fireworks, drama, instant sparks. But the truth is, passion without character is like building a house on a foundation of sand. It feels thrilling for a moment, but it doesn't last. God, in His wisdom, often allows you to encounter your future spouse in situations where their true character is revealed, not in what they say about themselves, but in how they actually behave when no one is applauding. Think about the power of consistency. Human beings are easily swayed by charm, but charm fades quickly when reality sets in. Integrity, on the other hand, is only proven over time. And this is why God tends to introduce soulmates in contexts that test patience, humility, and sacrifice. Maybe you work alongside this person and you begin to notice that they treat others with respect even when it's inconvenient. Or perhaps you see how they respond to difficulty, not with anger or blame, but with resilience and faith. These are the quiet signals, almost invisible at first, that speak volumes about whether someone can truly be trusted with your heart. It's interesting psychologically how often we ignore these cues. People will say, I didn't realize he or she was the one until much later. And what they mean is that the surface level attraction wasn't obvious. But beneath the surface, their souls were already being drawn to reliability. And that's what God cares about because love is not sustained by intensity, it's sustained by trust. If you cannot trust someone's character, no amount of chemistry will compensate for that. There's also a deeper, almost spiritual irony here. Often, the people who seem least likely to be your soulmate, the ones you don't immediately categorize as the one, are precisely the people God has been shaping in the background for you. And the reason you don't recognize them right away is because God is protecting you from superficial judgments. He wants you to see them not for what they can do for your ego, but for who they are at the level of integrity. That's why he places you in situations where character can't be hidden, stressful environments, long seasons of endurance, times when masks inevitably fall away. Now, imagine this in the context of a lifelong relationship. If you marry someone purely for their charm, you might find yourself constantly questioning their loyalty. But if you marry someone whose character you've witnessed firsthand, someone who doesn't just talk about kindness, but practices it, then even when storms come, you have an anchor. God is not trying to deprive you of romance. He's trying to prepare you for a relationship that can withstand reality. And reality, as you know, isn't easy. Life brings suffering, and in suffering, the truth of someone's soul is revealed. You don't want to discover that truth too late. So when God introduces you to your soulmate, pay attention to the quiet signals. Do they follow through on their promises? Do they show humility when they're wrong? Do they treat the powerless with dignity? These are not glamorous questions, but they are the questions that will determine the stability of your future. And perhaps this is why so many of us overlook the very person God has placed before us. We're looking for sparks, while He is pointing us towards substance. And here's the paradox worth wrestling with. You may not realize God has already introduced you to your soulmate, because you're still chasing an illusion of what love is supposed to look like. But when you train your eyes to see character, you'll notice that love, in its truest form, is not about being dazzled. It's about being safe. It's about having someone whose word you can trust when everything else falls apart. And maybe that's the invitation here. Instead of asking, is this person exciting enough for me? You should be asking, is this person trustworthy enough for me to build a life with? That's the question God is guiding you toward when He introduces you to someone through the evidence of their character. Don't be blinded by sparks. Look for the steady flame of integrity. That's the light God uses to guide you to your soulmate. Another way God introduces you to your soulmate, often without you realizing it, is through timing and the strange alignment of circumstances that feel at first glance like coincidence. But if you've lived long enough and paid attention, you know that coincidences aren't random, they're signals. They're God's way of weaving people into your life at the exact moment when both of you are ready, or at least ready enough to begin the work of building something together. And that's crucial because the right person at the wrong time is indistinguishable from the wrong person. We often underestimate the importance of timing in relationships. We think if two people are meant to be, they should simply collide and everything will fall perfectly into place. But reality is rarely that simple. You may meet someone who seems ideal, but if one or both of you are still trapped in immaturity, fear, or past wounds, the relationship can't grow. And so God delays, or He arranges encounters that seem small, almost insignificant, until much later when the pieces fit together. What feels like an interruption or even an inconvenience in the moment may turn out to be the precise doorway through which your soulmate enters your life. There's a psychological dimension here too. Human beings crave control. We want to dictate when and how things happen. But love, especially the kind of love that's meant to last, requires surrender. You cannot control another person's growth, nor can you fast track your own healing. Sometimes God withholds the recognition of your soulmate until you've reached a place of greater clarity, responsibility, or humility, and then suddenly you notice that person who was there all along, and everything feels different. Not because they changed, but because you did. Timing shifts perception. This is why the concept of divine appointments is so powerful. A casual meeting at a friend's gathering, a chance encounter at work, or even reconnecting with someone you had known years before, as these moments carry weight far beyond their surface appearance. From the outside, they look ordinary. From the inside, when you step back and reflect, you see a thread of intention. God arranges meetings that bypass your logic because He knows that if you tried to engineer them yourself, you'd miss the point. You'd either rush or resist trying to control what was never yours to control in the first place. Philosophically, this raises an important idea, the relationship between freedom and providence. God does not rob you of choice. You are free to love, free to walk away, free to resist His nudges. But He sets the stage. He arranges the encounters. He places people in your orbit, and then the choice becomes yours. Will you recognize the deeper significance, or will you dismiss it as random chance? To notice divine timing requires humility, because it demands that you admit you are not the master of your story. There's a larger author at work, and this is where faith intersects with psychology. If you walk through life believing everything is random, you'll miss the signals. But if you walk with the conviction that God is intentional, then you begin to see patterns emerge. That's when you realize the person you've bumped into 3 different times in unrelated contexts isn't just a stranger. It's someone God is positioning in your life for a reason. So when God introduces you to your soulmate through timing, it rarely feels dramatic in the moment. It's subtle, almost quiet, like a whisper. And because it's quiet, you're tempted to overlook it. But the people who learn to pay attention, to step back, reflect, and see the invisible hand guiding events, are the ones who eventually recognize that what looked like coincidence was, in fact, providence. The challenge then is to cultivate awareness. Instead of obsessing over when and how you'll meet your soulmate, focus on becoming attentive to the present moment. Ask yourself, who has God already placed in my path and why? What patterns keep repeating in my relationships? Where do I sense divine nudges that I've been too distracted to acknowledge? These are the questions that open your eyes to God's timing. Because in the end, the introduction isn't about a dramatic revelation. It's about a subtle alignment that only makes sense when you're ready to see it. And perhaps that's the deeper truth. God is less concerned about the grand entrance of your soulmate and more concerned about your readiness to recognize them when they arrive. What looks like coincidence is often providence, God aligning the moment when your eyes and your heart are finally prepared to see the fourth way God introduces you to your soulmate, often in ways you don't immediately perceive, is through growth, your own growth and theirs. This might not sound as exciting as divine timing or coincidence, but it is perhaps the most profound. Because at its core, a soulmate is not simply someone who completes you, it's someone whose presence draws out the best in you, someone who challenges you to confront the parts of yourself you've ignored, neglected, or even tried to run from. And in that process of growth, you begin to realize that God wasn't merely giving you a partner. He was giving you a mirror. Think about it. The people who influence you the most deeply aren't the ones who always agree with you, who always affirm your current state of being. They're the ones who provoke you to grow, to question, to stretch beyond the limitations of your comfort zone. A soulmate, in God's design, isn't sent just to walk beside you, but to help shape you into the person you're meant to become. That shaping is often uncomfortable, because growth is always uncomfortable. It requires you to shed habits, confront insecurities, and embrace responsibility at levels you might not have chosen on your own. Psychologically, this makes perfect sense. Human beings are not static. We're always in motion, moving toward potential or away from it. The relationships that endure, the ones with depth and meaning, are those that facilitate that forward movement. When you meet someone and suddenly find yourself thinking more critically, working harder on your flaws, or stepping more fully into your calling, it's often a sign that God is using that relationship as a tool for your transformation. And it's through this transformation that you begin to see this person isn't just another figure in your story. They may very well be the one God has written into your future. But here's the paradox. You usually don't realize this growth while it's happening. You might even resist it. You might feel frustrated, exposed, even vulnerable, because someone has entered your life who refuses to let you stay stagnant. And yet, if you look closely, that friction is evidence of love, not the shallow kind that leaves you unchanged, but the deeper kind that sees who you could be and refuses to let you settle for less. God often works through your soulmate to awaken parts of you that were dormant, hidden beneath layers of fear, pride, or apathy. Philosophically, this is deeply significant. It suggests that love is not merely about emotional fulfillment. It's about moral and spiritual development. To meet your soulmate is, in a sense, to encounter a calling. It's God's way of saying, I want you to become more than you are, and here is the person who will walk with you in that becoming. Seen from this perspective, a soulmate is not just a gift, they are a responsibility. Their presence demands that you rise, that you step into a higher version of yourself, and that you embrace the work of growth with seriousness. And so, when God introduces you to your soulmate through growth, it may not feel like a revelation at first. It may feel like conflict, like challenge, like being pushed into uncomfortable spaces. But if you look deeper, you'll see that this is precisely the point. Love that is easy, that asks nothing of you, tends to wither. Love that demands growth, that invites you into a process of becoming. That's the kind of love that endures. So the real question isn't just whether God has introduced you to your soulmate, but whether you are willing to grow into the kind of person who can recognize and nurture that relationship. Because if God's method is growth, then the answer to prayer isn't simply finding the right person. It's becoming the right person. The one God has for you won't just comfort you, they'll transform you. And the question is, are you willing to grow into the person who can receive that kind of love?